Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing another movie review. This movie is a horror film from the United States, English language, released in the year 2018, directed by Ari Aster, and this film is called Hereditary. So Hereditary is about this family that are very dysfunctional. Now the mother in the family has recently lost her mother. She was this grandmother who was very domineering, and the mother of this family is actually having a lot of mental scars, and these mental scars actually have effect on her family. So she's worried that her young daughter is actually developing behaviour that was very reminiscent of the grandmother, and so the mother is trying deeply to actually protect this young girl and actually use this to act in a positive effect and try and push the family away from the road that she's actually dreading. And so she's got a lot of paranoia about this. She's very torn up, and she is just trying to basically free herself of her demons. But those demons are about to be exaggerated when there's a family tragedy that occurs that forces this mother to go down a downward spiral where she actually comes to the realization that the mother, the grandmother of the family, actually had a hidden secret that threatens to destroy the family from the inside out. So what that secret is and what's in store for this family is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Hereditary. Unfortunately, I came into this film with a really high expectation. Now I know that that can be a curse because you set a pedestal that is so unrealistic that if the movie doesn't reach that expectation, you can dismiss it as a bad film. But in reality, it's just disappointing because you put it up there so high, and as I said, if it doesn't reach that expectation, this is what can happen. And so this is the curse of a movie that's being overhyped. And I always go into a movie trying to give it the best opportunity and the most fair opportunity, but it is very hard to shake off all the hype that this movie was getting. A lot of people saying it's a modern day masterpiece, it's a modern day version of The Exorcist, and so it's one of the most incredibly scary experiences in a very long time. And so for that, I was very excited to see it. And when it finally came out here in Australia in cinemas, I was raring to go. I wanted this to be the movie that was going to blow me away. I wanted this movie that was going to be proof that horror filmmakers still have what it takes, that this is not a genre for lazy filmmakers, this is not a genre to be laughed at, this is a genre when it's done properly can be truly terrifying. And so after seeing the movie on Saturday night in cinemas, I will say that it's not the masterpiece that I was hoping it would be, but it's still a fantastic horror film, and it's a movie that I would gladly go out there and recommend to everybody that I see. Now the reason why I like this movie is that it's actually made by a director who actually seems like a horror fan. Is that this is a guy, Ari Aster, who's been influenced by horror directors of the past. You've got Roman Polanski in Rosemary's Baby, the slow burn tension of paranoia. You've got Willem Friedkin's Exorcist in some of the freaky set pieces that this movie has. You've also got very recent films such as The Witch in the slow burn progression of the mentalities of these people. And so he's borrowing all these aspects from other films that have come before it that actually feel as though this is a homage to, and that it was actually taking inspiration, but it's a movie that develops its own soul. It develops its own shadow, so you never feel as though it's plagiarizing. You never feel it's flogging a dead cash cow. It's basically using something in its favor. It's using aspects of other filmmakers to create something of his own. And Ari Aster, I think, delivers one of the most memorable horror films that I've seen in a very long time. And the reason why it's so memorable is that it's not just a simple horror film. This can be played as a psychological drama about not only the grief, about loss and the devastation and pain of loss and that can bring to a family, but it's also about hereditary illness and how it can be passed from one generation to another. And can you actually break the cycle, or are you a product of the person that raised you? And so I thought all those interesting elements of the film actually create something that is very absorbing. And I thought the absorbing aspect of this family wouldn't be there if it wasn't for the brilliant performances from Alex Wolff, who plays the teenage son. You got Millie Shapiro, who plays the young daughter, who was very creepy. You got Gabriel Byrne, who plays the father, and the person who really steals the show was Toni Collette as the mother, who's this woman who is battling her own demons, and the demons are magnifying. The demons are actually consuming her to a point where you feel as though she's losing the plot. And as she goes deeper and deeper into this downward spiral, you feel as though the family is in a lot of danger. And the aspect of pain and loss is actually taken from three different avenues. You've got the avenue of the father, who's trying to cope with the disintegration of his family. He's trying to actually keep them all together and the pressure that's having on him. You've got the pressure of Alex Wolff's character, who is basically has a lot of guilt, that I'm not going to tell you why he has guilt, but the guilt is actually consuming him. And you've got the consumption of pain as far as Toni Collette's character is concerned. And you've got the hereditary pain of this young girl. And so I thought all of that really creates something that is just a deep and meaningful sort of horror film that will warrant you to go and watch it time and time again. If a movie does that, it's always very good in my book. And so Toni Collette really steals the show. This is one of her best performances, and she just proves how good an actress she actually is. So Ari Aster not only gets the best out of his characters through a fantastic script, he also has set pieces of horror that really capture you and really actually send a shiver down your spine, especially towards the end when it starts to get really weird. I really love the way it was, is because it wasn't jump scare, it wasn't paranormal activity. This is a movie that wasn't excessive gore for the sake of being gory. There were gory moments, but they hit you very hard because they are very few and far between. It's very sporadic in its violent set pieces, which hit you even harder, as opposed to something that is very frequent. And if you do something very frequently, you can desensitize to it after a while. But Ari Aster never lets you desensitize to anything that is happening in this movie, and that's why it's as scary as it is. And whether it's something in the background that you have to pay close attention to, this is the subtlety that he brings to Hereditary. And this is something I love, is that directors forcing the viewer to actually use their eyes, use their brains. You can't clock off. You can't look at your watch all the time. This is a movie that does demand your attention, and it does absorb you to a point where I thought as though this is a movie that the runtime was absolutely fantastic. It goes for 2 hours and 8 minutes, and I never thought as though it actually went that long. I thought it was a lot less, is because I was always interested in what was going on. And so you've got the pain and grief of the family aspect, and you've got the aspect of a lot of ambiguity as far as horror is concerned. This is a movie where you can draw your own conclusions up, and that's something that will create a lot of debate. And so I thought there's a very serious sort of message to the film, but it also has that entertaining sort of horror aspect as well towards the end. So if you are a little bit bored with the film, if you don't have a high attention span, I would say definitely stick with it, because the ending will really reward you, and it will actually leave you scratching your head. I thought it was a deeply insane ending, which some people might not like, but for me, I really liked the way it went about its business. I thought the cinematography was absolutely fantastic, complemented by a fantastic and very, very creepy score, and there were some moments that really shocked me, then just puts in there for good measure. I just thought that the fact, as I said, it's very sporadic and it's shocking moments, makes it even more shocking, is because you're not quite expecting what's going on. So the actual formula to the story actually took a turn. I thought that specific characters were going to be in the movie a little bit longer, but it actually does take me by surprise. And so, as I said, this is everything that you want from a horror film. So many horror films are so weak and they're just so lazy that you actually get very disheartened with it. But then movies like Hereditary, you've got The Witch, and movies from the past that actually indicate that when horror's done properly, it can be really nerve-wracking. It can be a real experience, and Hereditary is definitely a movie that falls into that category. But the only problem I have with Hereditary was the fact that it is a very sort of slow burn film, and I know a lot of people aren't going to like that. I know a lot of people criticise The Witch for that very same reason, that it is very slow. And I will say that some of the scary moments, they do happen, and then all of a sudden it goes back into that sort of progression of this family. And so it's not really sustained threat, it's not sustained pressure where you actually feel as though you're running out of breath. Towards the end it does get that way, but it's just that slow pressure cooker where it starts off as this family trying to cope with their problems, but then it slowly twists and turns into something so much darker. And it's like a descent into hell, but you have to be patient for that descent. It's not a very quick trip, it's actually a long trip, but if you make it out to the end without falling to sleep, you are going to be rewarded. And it's a movie, as I said, that is a very mature horror film, and it does set itself apart from a lot of these other lazy horror films that really dishearten that viewer. So this is an indication that horror still has what it takes, and if you're a fan of this type of thing, Hereditary is coming highly recommended. I'm going to give it 4 stars. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.